Well, kids, welcome to another edition of Rimshots with Sean, brought to you by Barstools and Bandtalk, all the way from Lincoln, Nebraska. I have Sam Spade from a very cool band called the Midnight Devils. Sir, thank you for spending some time with us here today.
Absolutely, Sean. It's really my pleasure, and I appreciate you having me on today.
Well, I got to say, I've been doing this. This is almost 3 years, and the email that you sent me, kudos to you. I won't read it, but people should take lessons on how to approach somebody to do something, because it was super professional. You stated your case. You stated who you were. You had all the links. You had everything. It was very well done. Is that how you're approaching people to try to get some things done for you guys in terms of your PR?
Yeah, absolutely. With the Midnight Devils, it's been such a crazy run, and we've been building, and the success and the ups and downs have just been so amazing. Everything's done right here in house. It's a very a punk rock kind of style and attitude that I really think that we bring to this, and I've always felt with this band. Nobody's just going to give us anything for free. If there's something we want, we really got to go out there and make it happen for ourselves. So accomplishing these goals, doing these tours, it's something that we take a lot of pride in, and being professional and doing this and saying the things that we need to say with the freedom that we want to say it with.
I can see you and I have both done our part to put Nick and Sophie through college.
Yes, I was noticing that on the wall too. I was like, okay,
yeah,
we're in good company here.
Huge Eric Carr fan too.
So,
so your band, I'm looking at the clips. I see some live stuff. I guess the first thing I'll ask you, because you've been playing a lot, do you guys, when you play your own shows, are you a combination of original versus cover? Are you straight out original? Do you mix it up? How do you guys do that?
We do. When we play shows, that's always our own music, our own original songs. With that being said, we play a lot of covers, and the band kind of started out with that idea of, hey, we want to play these glam rock covers or these just great songs that we were influenced by. So when we do our set list, a lot of it is feeling out the crowd. And we don't have a set list per se, and I'll just sit up there and I'll call the songs as to what I think that the crowd is kind of feeling, the vibe that night, what it is. And if it's a cover that we need to pull out, we'll pull them out. You just read that room, read that audience, and if you could push it over the top, right on that chaos line with a cover, man, there's nothing better to get people singing, going crazy.
Yeah, no, I agree. I a couple of bands that I play in, one is very structured and the song, like the set is whatever it is, it doesn't deviate. And then the other band is kind of like, here we go, we're going to chuck it in a blender and away we go.
Yeah.
From a spontaneity point, so you guys are a 3-piece band, correct?
Yeah. Yep.
How much rehearsal do you guys have to put in to be able to have that level of spontaneity? Or is it just, you're so familiar with each other that you just get out there and 1, 2, 3 rock?
Yeah, that's what it is. We have a list of songs almost in our heads of what we know that we need to know. Everything else you have to be ready for anything at any moment. So it's kind of imperative that you practice. And we were really blessed. Our musical leader, guitar player Chris Heinlein Sniper is such a great dude and holds us to the standard. He doesn't want if you mess up on stage, you're going to hear it after the show. So he really brings out the best in us to try and push ourselves to be up to that level and that professionalism and being just that good. We don't get to practice because we live in 3 different cities. So it's like you got to be on and you got to do your homework and know your songs. And that's really a cool thing. It makes us such a good band live. None of us drink, and so everybody's kind of on that same page. As once the show starts, man, once we hit that first chord, we're coming full blast, and it's just going to be a juggernaut of power just pounding down the door.
So I like to ask this question. I mean, if you were to come and grab my CD collection or my Spotify or whatever, I like what I like, right? So you're not going to find any jazz on there. I'm just not a jazz guy. You're going to find, the Motley Crue. You're going to find the Kiss. You're going to find like that genre, that era, which had a good run. And then the 90s come along, and the tour de jour, if you will, was we're successful, we hate our lives. But now it seems like everything's come full circle. Why do you think this music continues to stand up and have success?
I really think that it is due, in fact, to we're kind of carrying a tradition. We're not an 80s hair metal band, but we grew up on that music and we were influenced by those bands. And I think it's the next kind of logical step of after these guys kind of show us the way, pass the torch, if you will. And that's really what Chip has done. And Chip produced our record. He kind of has been like our guiding light, if you will, and learning by example and learning from those stories. And it's kind of this tradition that's passed on from band to band to band. And you get out on the road and you do your thing and you sell records. I really think that's part of it. Another thing is that, like you said, the 90s were such a dark time, I guess. Not that the music was bad. It was just a dark time. And I really think that now more than ever, people need some fun. People need some light. People need some just something that's going to look good on paper, look good when you look at it up on stage. It just needs to have that action. I really think it's an exciting time, and it's the music that we're doing is kind of just a throwback, and it's very exciting, but still modern and still new and still free to do whatever you want.
I think a lot of people, looked at the way bands kind of presented themselves, and the thought was, you know what, they're just a bunch of hackers, they're no good. And there were some good players back then. There's some good players now.
Mm-hmm.
You don't get to go and play in front of an audience for a long period of time. You might get a 1 or 2 off show, but you don't get to have longevity if you can't play. Is that a fair statement?
Absolutely. Yes. And we stay here and like I stayed up real late practicing and just working that writing songs and just playing. And it's like, I just feel like there's this gnawing to create and this gnawing to play and this gnawing to be better.
So, and I mean, we'll talk about the album and a lot of the success that you had in touring, but obviously we all went through this whole lockdown. It was about, this podcast came out of that. It was something that I thought I'd be doing for 4 or 5 weeks, and here I am, almost 3 years later. What did you guys do during that time? Because anybody that I talked to that kind of used it to create new music and maybe use technology came out the other end in a good spot. Shows are happening for them. Songs are being sung and records are being, merch is bought. What did you guys do during that time?
Going back, like right before the lockdown happened, so March of 2020, we landed like this dream tour, the big one. They called us up and they're like, we need you guys in Salt Lake City in a week. You're going to be opening for the Choir Boys for a month, coast to coast. It's going to be this huge grand tour. And we're like, we just thought, man, we made it. Like, this is our dream come true. We went out and did 2 weeks of the tour, and we got, the world shut down on March 15th, and we were down in New Orleans opening for the Choir Boys. Things were going great, and they brought us aside, so the whole world's shutting down, and I didn't know what to do. We thought we'd be out 2 weeks later, back on the road. The tour would pick back up where it left off. Obviously, that wasn't the case, so we thought that's kind of the universe telling us that, hey, we need to do something and do something good and do something really cool because we have the time now. So we sat down and we sat in Sniper's basement in Omaha and wrote the record, which is now came out July 2nd, 2022. Never begged for it. We wrote all those songs and kind of planned our what we were going to do when everything opened back up. We had no idea when or where it would happen, but we were one of the first bands to kind of get out there and start traveling again. And we kind of went all the way to the East Coast and did some shows in states where you could do shows. And I think that really helped. So we weren't down too long.
Well, that's pretty good because, I mean, up here, it just seemed like people were chucking darts at a dartboard, right? Like, I mean, and I get it was you really knew what was up, but up here the communication was so terrible. I mean, it was like you were semi-open one day, and then the next day you think you're off to the races, and there's a press release saying, "Hey, we changed our mind." Was it similar down there? Or I'm told by some people they just certain areas it was just locked down until they figured it out.
Yeah, it really was. And in Nebraska, things opened up faster than I would say in Chicago. Chicago is just really locked down. The bigger cities, the bigger areas. So once it kind of cleared off enough that we could start traveling, that's when we knew like we could do this. And really when the record was being done, like when we were recording it at Chip's house, it was maybe a year into the lockdown. So we had spent about a year writing this record, getting it ready, doing the demos, figuring out how to do this. And then once the restrictions kind of lifted, we started renting cars and driving to Chicago to get this record done. So it was just like we were kind of all over it, just watching and making sure like that we were safe and that our loved ones were safe. But we still wanted to get this thing done and knocked out.
Yeah, I hear you. And if I get to the point where I was over it, like
Yeah.
it's like I get why they had to do what they had to do, but by the same token, I mean there was also a running theme where the thing that maybe got people through it more than anything else was music, and it was this thing that seemed to be getting punished the hardest when it was all going on.
And I got some great advice too. I didn't know what to do, and I'm much like everybody else. We're like, we have nothing to talk about because we're not doing anything. And somebody told me, like, look, the playing field has just been leveled. Every band is stuck at home. You're on the same level as Kiss right now. We're all trying to engage our fans and let these people know that we're still out there. So we were really, really active on social media over that period of time to just say, hey, you guys aren't alone. We're all kind of still in this thing together, and we're going to be here when it finishes and when we get released. And that I thought was a really cool thing and a really good piece of advice somebody gave me is just engage, interact. People need this now more than ever.
I think that's a great place to end segment one because I have a segue into that, but I think it's going to set up segment two for quite nicely. So we're back after this with the one, the only Mr. Sam Spade.